Okay, guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope God has kept you well. I want to appreciate you guys for the small support that have been giving me. We began a discussion on antibiotics, and I believe we finished our fourth episode last time. So we are going to move on our next episode. Until now, it has been a journey. We are almost finishing this uh, gruesome journey. We have been having a discussion on antibiotics. We began by bacteria, uh, morphology, and later we looked on classification of antibiotics. We began by looking at some of the crucial areas that antibiotics work on. And the first area that we looked at the cell wall. We looked at some of the antibiotics that work by targeting the cell wall, and here we looked at those that act by decreasing the synthesis of peptidoglycan layer. Here we looked at the vancomycin and the fusiomycin. We also looked at those that bind on the penicillin binding protein and prevent the cross-linking of the peptidoglycan layer. And here we looked at the beta-lactam antibiotics, the likes of natural penicillins, the likes of anti-staphylococcus the aminopenicillins, the cephalosporins, the carbapenems, the monobactams. After finishing the cell wall, we looked at those that work on the cell membrane. Later, we looked on those that work on the nuclear components. We looked at those that work by inhibiting those that work by interfering with the folic acid pathway. Here I looked at the sulfonamides, example, the sulfamethoxazole and also the trimethoprim, and how they are combined to work as a fixed dose combination called cotrimoxazole. Later, on our last episode, we looked at those drugs that work by interfering with the integrity of the DNA. And here we looked at the two classes. These are the nitroimidazoles. Example is the metronidazole and the tinidazole. We said that this class work by creating free radicals that damage the DNA. And we also looked at some of the indications of using the flagyl or the metronidazole. It's very much effective when it comes to working against anaerobic bacteria, but also it's also used when it comes to protozoa, the likes of entamoeba histolytica, the likes of Giardia lamblia, the likes of Trichomonas vaginalis. And one thing that I told you guys is that when a client is yet to use or is using flagyl, you have to be very crucial when this client is using alcohol or has just taken alcohol, because there may be a reaction, a side effect, the sufferum like reaction. So you have to be very thorough when giving this drug. The other side effects that comes by using these drugs. Another classification, we looked at the nitrofurants. In this drug, we looked at a drug called nitrofurantoin. They're very similar when it comes to mode of action, but this one, it creates intermediates that attack the DNA, the RNAs, and the synthesis of protein. This drug, nitrofurantoin, to be specific, it's very good when it comes to bladder infection, but also be very crucial when it comes to the side effects, the JT, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, the pulmonary toxicity. Example, it tends to cause the acute reversible pneumonitis, and also it may cause hepatotoxicity. So by now you have looked at three major interference of the nuclease components. Number one, you have looked at interference with the folic acid pathway. Number two, you have looked at the interference with the DNA integrity. And right now, number three, so for today, we're going to look at two. So the first one, I'm going to look at a class of drugs that work by targeting of topoisomerase. To be more specific, I can say topoisomerase 2 and 4. So we're going to look at drugs that work by targeting topoisomerase 2 and 4. I'm certain you guys, it's the first time you guys are coming across this term topoisomerase. For those guys who have done genetics, I'm certain you guys have come across the term. But just as a reminder, what do we mean when you say topoisomerase? Number one, topoisomerase is an enzyme. So it's an essential enzyme that regulates the overwinding of DNA, majorly during replication and transcription. Yeah. So we all know that the DNA helix has to be overwound so that the transcription and the replication may be effective. And to be more specific, uh, when the topoisomerase is not available, it may be detrimental for the bacteria. Why? Because if there's no winding of the helix, there may be a strong tension that will be so great, and it may entangle the DNA and break it. So unwinding of the helix is very crucial, and the enzyme that does this is the topoisomerase enzyme. Let me just write something brief here for you guys to understand. So let me just say something. So there are two enzymes that are very common when it comes to topoisomerase. There's type 2 topoisomerase. And this enzyme, its major work, there's in bacteria there's a type that is called, there's a one that's called DNA, which is very common, DNA gyrase, which you may listen to it. For those guys who have done bacteriology, you have looked at a specific type of type 2, this one that's called DNA gyrase. Now what does this do? This one is responsible for supercoiling. It's responsible for negative supercoiling. Sorry, for negative supercoiling. Basically it's responsible for unwinding the DNA helix, and by doing this, it decreases. Decreasing it by negative supercoiling. When this happens, what happens? This decreases the tensional strength. The tensional strength. It helps in decreasing the tensional strength, allowing the DNA to unwind. And this is very crucial for replication. And when there's replication, what happens? It's very good for replication and let me just their transcription. So unwinding of the DNA is essential, and this only happens by the first enzyme is topoisomerase 2. That's a very good enzyme. Yeah. So topoisomerase 2, to be more specific, there's a type called DNA gyrase. It's responsible for negative supercoiling. So by doing this, it decreases the torsional strength, allowing the DNA to unwind for replication and transcription. There's also another enzyme that I just want to touch on. It's called type 4 topoisomerase. Type 4 topoisomerase. So what is the major difference when it comes to this type? Now this type, type 4 topoisomerase, it's very useful in the entangling of newly replicated interlinked daughter chromosomes, allowing the cell to divide, and grow. Yeah. So type 4, its major action is that it helps in the entangling of the newly replicated interlinked daughter chromosomes that are allowing the cell to divide. So these two enzymes are crucial when it comes to the replication and the growth of the bacteria. So if you inhibit these two enzymes, it means that you are stopping the growth of the bacteria. So which group of drugs do this? So the final point here is that there's a group of drugs called fluoroquinolones. Fluoroquinolones target these two enzymes. So the group of antibiotics, or the class of antibiotics that work by inhibiting these two major enzymes, are the fluoroquinolones. So in short, fluoroquinolones are type 2 topoisomerase and type 4 topoisomerase inhibitors. They inhibit these two two enzymes from conducting their role. So when it comes to indication, I've decided I'm going to name the examples of fluoroquinolones with the indications. And one thing that you have to know, just like cephalosporins, the fluoroquinolones also have a classification based on their generations. Yeah, the first, second, third, and fourth generation. So I'm going to name the generation examples of fluoroquinolones that fall under that generation and the indications of that generation. So I'm going to start with the first generation. So I've got the first generation fluoroquinolones, and this one here, very rare, is the nalidixic. Nalidixic, I think that's the spelling. Nalidixic, yeah, nalidixic acid. If I'm wrong the spelling, if the spelling is wrong, please type in the comment section below. Is it nali? I think that's the spelling. Naclidixic or nalidixic acid. Yeah, yeah. So this one here, its major role is very much effective when it comes to gram negative. When it comes to gram negative UTIs, it's a very good. It's a very good drug when it comes to dealing with gram negative UTIs. Another one is the second generation. This one is common, second generation. Now here at the drug under this category, we have got around three. The first one is the ciprofloxacin. The ciprofloxacin. We also have the norfloxacin. The norfloxacin. We also have the ofloxacin. So if you hear the term floxacin, just think of the topoisomerase inhibitors. Are you together? Or think of the fluoroquinolones. Now, the major indications of this drug, they are very good. They're very excellent. Let me put the term excellent. They're excellent in gram negative bacteria. Very excellent in gram negative bacteria, but also can be also used in pseudomonas. Yeah, bacteria. Next, we have got third generation. Here we have the levofloxacin, and also sparfloxacin. These drugs are effective when it comes to expanded gram positive and atypical coverage. When it comes to atypical coverage, especially of the respiratory infections. So it's very good when it comes to resp infections. So when a client has got a resp infection, the best drug that you can look into also is the likes of levofloxacin. The next one is fourth generation. Here, the drugs under this category, we have the moxifloxacin. There's a news that I had. There's a news. There's this anti-TB regimen drugs that are being used. There's rumors. You can confirm this rumor, or you can, or maybe it has been confirmed that moxifloxacin will be one of the regimen that will be added in the under the anti-TB regimen. So you can go and check it or confirm it. So moxifloxacin also it's a fourth generation fluoroquinolones. It's very good. Same when it comes to expanded gram positive and significant anaerobic coverage. So those are some of the I don't is this a spelling of nalidixic acid? So please on your free time go and check the spelling of nalidixic acid. I'm not sure if this is the right spelling. So so these are some of the drugs when it comes to fluoroquinolones. So I've got nalidixic acid, which is very rarely. I personally I haven't come across it, but if you have, let us know. We also have the Cipro, which is very common. the ciprofloxacin, the norfloxacin, and the ofloxacin. Ofloxacin, I think that's the spelling. We also have the likes of third generation, the levofloxacin and the sparfloxacin. We also have the fourth generation, which is the moxifloxacin. And an assignment to go and check the newly anti-TB regimen. I think this is one of the drug that may be or has been added as an anti-TB drug regimen. So that being said, let's go to the side effects of this category of drugs. So the major side effect, let me just put here a warning side effect. These are one of the major side effects that you have to know. So fluoroquinolones, I think that's the spelling. Fluoroquinolones are associated with an increased risk of tendonitis and tendon rupture. So you have to be very keen for chronic users of this drug, because they may rupture their Achilles tendon. Very common, and that's a warning when using these drugs. Another point here is QT prolongation. So when it comes to the side effects, especially for those clients who have got cardiac issues, you have to be very vigilant, because these drugs tend to cause the QT prolongation. There are other drugs that also cause QT prolongation, and one of the major arrhythmias that are associated with QT prolongation are the polymorphic VTAC, the torsades de pointes. Yeah, so a client with QT prolongation, the client is at increased risk of developing the torsades de pointes, or the polymorphic VTAC. Yeah, so the drugs that cause this QT prolongation, number one is the fluoroquinolones, and there's others like macrolides. You're going to look at later. The macrolides also, they tend to cause QT prolongations. We have the other antipsychotics. We have the type 1A antiarrhythmic drugs, the likes of disopyramide, quinidine, procainamide. We also have got the type 3 antiarrhythmic drugs, the likes of amiodarone, abitulide, dofetilide, and the cetalol. So all these drugs tend to cause QT prolongation. And when the client has got QT prolongation, the client may develop a very serious arrhythmia called torsades de pointes. So you have to be very, very keen. So QT prolongation increases the risk of arrhythmias. Yeah, to be more specific, think of torsades de pointes. I think that's the spelling, torsades de pointes. I believe that's the spelling, torsades de pointes. So be very vigilant for clients who are chronic users of fluoroquinolones. Yeah, and it's even worse when the client has got cardiac issues. These drugs may cause QT prolongation, thereby increasing the risk of arrhythmias. To be more specific, the torsades de pointes, or the polymorphic VTAC. So that's a thing that you have to be very, very keen. It may also come with the CNS side effects. Here it can cause dizziness. It may cause dizziness. Yeah, is it double Z? Dizziness. Yeah, it may cause dizziness. It may cause some headaches. It may cause some of the seizures. And I think, let me just put a bracket here. The reason why it may cause seizures, for those guys who have looked into seizures as a topic, is because it may cause secondary GABA antagonism. I'm certain you guys, when you do med-surg, you look at how some of the pathophysiology of seizures. There's two neurotransmitters that are very much involved, the GABA and the glutamate. Yeah. So when there's a decrease in the GABA, it may propagate seizure, or when there's an increase in the glutamate. So those are the two major neurotransmitters that are involved. And these other electrolytes like the sodium, the calcium, and the chloride ions that are also involved. So go and check on that. Certain that in future, when you look at the anti-seizure medications, maybe we're going to look further on how on some of the pathophysiology of seizures and the mechanism of actions of the drugs that work on GABA or the glutamate or the NMDA or the AMPA sites. So next, apart from CNS side effects, these drugs also they may cause cartilage damage. Cartilage damage. They may also cause cartilage damage, and this is very much common in children and pregnant women or those lactating women. Yeah, because it tends to damage growing cartilage. Let me write here growing cartilage damage. Let me add growing cartilage damage. Yeah. So this being said, it's majorly avoided in children. Yeah, children, pregnant women, or also lactating women, those women who are breastfeeding. Yeah, lactating women. So those are some of the major side effects when it comes to fluoroquinolones. There may be others, but these are the major ones. So never forget tendon rupture. This, let me put it in red. This is one of the major risks for those clients who use chronic users of the fluoroquinolones. Those clients who use Cipro every now and then, they may have Achilles tendon rupture, very common. It may also cause QT prolongation, very serious cardiac issues. So you should monitor the EKGs of these clients, especially those who are chronic users of the Cipros. When you see an arrhythmia, the drug has to be changed or the dose has to be reduced. Also think of CNS, and here think of the seizures. It may also propagate seizures because it has got a GABA antagonism. So those are the major ones, and also growing cartilage damage. So those are some of the side effects when it comes to using fluoroquinolones. So that's all about the antibiotics that target the topoisomerase 2 and 4. So a summary of this class, the group of antibiotics that work on these two enzymes are the fluoroquinolones. And topoisomerase 2, this enzyme is very crucial for the bacteria, because these enzymes, it really helps in preventing supercoiling of the DNA. It's responsible for the negative supercoiling. It unwinds the DNA, allowing for replication and transcription. So if you target that enzymes, basically you will damage the DNA. Yeah, you will make the DNA to you will the DNA, you will cause the breaking and the entanglement of the DNA. So this enzyme is very crucial, and the drug that target these enzymes are the fluoroquinolones. Another enzyme that may be targeted by fluoroquinolones is the type 4 topoisomerase, and this enzyme is always very useful when it comes to the untangling of newly replicated interlinked daughter chromosomes that allow the cell to divide. Yeah. So if you think of Cipro, think of floxacin. If you hear the drugs with the term floxacin, that drug fall under the fluoroquinolones. And this very common ones like the Cipros, the norfloxacin, the levofloxacin, and others, and the moxifloxacins. They are very common usage of antibiotics in today's world. When it comes to side effects, think of the tendon rupture, very common. Think of the QT prolongation. These are some of the drugs that cause to start the pointers. Yeah. Think of seizure activity, the CNS. Yeah, it may cause dizziness, it may cause headaches. Think of the it being avoided in pregnant and lactating women, because it may damage the growing cartilage. So that's all when it comes to drugs that target the topoisomerase 2 and 4. Now, let's move to the last part of our class today. I'm going to now look at the drugs or antibiotics that still the same the genetic components, like the DNA, the RNAs. I'm going to look at the drugs that inhibit inhibition of bacterial RNA synthesis. So inhibition of bacterial RNA synthesis. Yeah, RNA is very crucial when it comes to replication and transcription and translation. When you do genetics, you're going to look at various types of RNA, the mRNA, the rRNA, the tRNAs. So RNA is a very crucial component when it comes to genetics. And bacteria also, just like humans, they need the RNAs. Yeah. So you've got drugs, a group of drugs that work by inhibiting the bacterial RNA synthesis. They basically prevent the synthesis of the RNAs. And a group of drugs that work under this category are the rifamycin. Rifamycin. Rifamycins. And one major drug here is the rifampicin. Rifampicin or the rifampin. The rifampicin. It's the rifampicin. This is one of the major drugs. Actually, it's very easy for you to remember this. Just think of RNA, R, rifampicin, rifamycin, rifampicin, RNA. It's very easy for you to remember these drugs. Now, what happens? This drug, they target bacterial, uh, the bacterial DNA dependent, DNA dependent RNA polymerase. They work by targeting bacterial DNA dependent RNA polymerase, or for those guys, RNP. For those guys who love using initials, is RNAP. So they target the RNAP, yeah, enzyme. So they target these enzymes. There's this enzyme called the RNA polymerase enzyme. This enzyme, it works by elongating the RNA chain after the addition of nucleotides, thereby initiating RNA synthesis and the transcription. So this enzyme, it just works. This RNAP enzyme, its major function, it's elongation of the RNA chain. Yeah, it works by this enzyme. Basically, it helps in the manufacture of the RNA. Yeah, so this enzyme is very crucial. The RNA is very crucial, and the RNAP enzyme is an enzyme that works by manufacturing this RNA. Yeah, so when you inhibit this enzyme, the cell cannot synthesize essential proteins, and these proteins, we know, are very useful when it comes to RNA. So when you inhibit RNAP enzyme, it means that you'll stop the RNA from working or from being made, and the cell now will not be able to grow or divide, and it may lead to the cell dying. So that is a very crucial part that you may look at. So to summarize, this group, they target the RNAP, the RNA polymerase enzyme. So one of the major indication here, I know you guys have know, to make it easier for you, let me just put here, I think an hyphen, sorry, DNA dependent. Yeah. So one of the major indication is in the mycobacteria. Mycobacteria is very good when it comes to mycobacteria. So this rifampicin is one of the drugs combination used in management of tuberculosis. We have the isoniazid, we have the rifampicin, we have the isoniazid, rifampicin, we have the pyrozinamide and the ethambutol. These are the combinations that are always used when it comes to dealing with the anti-TB, with the tuberculosis. I think there's a new regimen that has come out, but just know that rifampicin was one of the major combination that was used in fighting tuberculosis. And you know, TB is one of the example of the mycobacteria. So it's very, let me just put here, it's highly effective against tuberculosis. Very effective against bacteria tuberculosis. It can also be used against other gram-positive cocci, and other gram. So gram-positive cocci are the likes of the staph and the strep, like the staph and the strep bacteria. Yeah. and also gram negative, gram negative cocci. Yeah, the likes of Neisseria. Neisseria. Yeah, so those are some of the indications of using rifampicin. But no, don't forget, note, let me put here NB, because some of you may forget. So it's a co-component in anti-TB regimen. Key component in anti-TB regimen. So never forget that. Now let's look at some of the side effects. Let me just highlight here. So rifampicin is the drug. So in this case, it's really easy for you to remember some of the drugs under this category. If you see rifampicin, think of the RNA. Yeah, think of the RNA. Let me just put here. Sorry, I want to highlight it in green. Let's highlight it in green. So if you think of rifampicin, think of RNA. Yeah, and it's very effective when it comes to mycobacteria. So this is one of the major things that you should highlight. It's very much effective when it comes to mycobacteria. Very much effective when it comes to mycobacteria. Yeah, a very key component of drug in anti-TB regimen. Now let's jump to the side effects. What are some of the side effects when using rifampicin? So the first one here is hepatotoxicity. So you have to check on the elevation of the liver enzymes. Yeah, very common. Another one is the urine discoloration. Yeah, so the clients who use this drug, you may look it may look harmless. They may be a harmless discoloration of the urine, harmless discoloration of the urine, harmless orange. I think it's orange. It's always orange or red. Yes, I think it's orange or red discoloration of the urine. Harmless red. Sorry, harmless red stroke orange urine. Yeah. So it may for the clients who use this drug, the urine may appear reddish or orange like. So don't worry, it's harmless. It's one of the side effects when using these drugs. It may also cause GIT distress. Yeah, the likes of nausea and the likes of the vomiting, very common. This one thing, it may also cause drug interactions. There's a very huge drug interactions that comes when using rifampicin. Why? Because it tends to induce CYP 450. CYP 450. Let me write here inducer. CYP 450 inducer. Yeah, so this drug, it's a potent inducer of cytochrome P450. Remember, this CYP 450, it's always one of the cytochromes that tend to work on various drugs. Yeah. So what happens? So when a client is using rifampicin, there may be an elevation of CYP 450 enzymes. So this will lead to decreased plasma levels of oral contraceptives, warfarin, and digoxin. So if a client is using rifampicin, this client should not be using an oral contraceptive, because there will be a decreased plasma levels of oral contraceptive. Or this client using warfarin also should not be using rifampicin, or a client using digoxin should not be using rifampicin. So this there'll be a drug interaction with oral contraceptive, warfarin, rifampicin, etc. So should be very keen when giving this drug combination. You should ask the client: is the client using oral contraceptive? Yeah. Is the client using warfarin? Is the client using digoxin? So there's some drugs that tend to interact, yeah, because of CYP 450 inducer. Because rifampicin is an example of CYP 450 inducer, a cytochrome P450 inducer. Yeah, so that's all when it comes to rifampicin. I hope this was a nice introduction If you have had something that you tend to, if you have had a point that I've made that is useful, please comment. If you have had a point that I've made that is questionable, also you can comment, because you are here for a discussion. This is a discussion as much as as much as I'm the one speaking. You guys can comment on the comment section. On our next episode, I will highlight on what has been discussed, and if there's a correction that is to be made, I'll make it, and we'll engage. Yeah. So that's all about the two classification of drugs that work on the genetics of the DNA. We have spoken about the fluoroquinolones today, the cyprose, the norfloxacin, the ofloxacin. You have also spoke on the rifampicin. So that's all on today's message. Don't forget, when it comes to fluoroquinolones, think of tendon rupture as one of the major side effects. Think of the QT prolongation, yeah. Think of the seizure activity, and think of it being avoided in the pregnant and children because of the damage that it does on the growing cartilage. When it comes to rifampicin, think of TB, because this is one of the important regimen when it comes to fighting the tuberculosis. Don't forget, clients who use this drug may complain or may tell you that their urine appears red in color or orange in color. Tell them that this is one of the side effects, that it's harmless. Uh, think of drug interactions. For clients using this drug, you should ask them if they're an oral contraceptive, or ask them if they're using warfarin, or ask them if they're using digoxin. So there are some drugs that tend to interact with rifampicin, because rifampicin is a CYP450 inducer. It means that it will increase or it will elevate the levels of CYP, and when CYP levels are elevated, CYP acts on other drugs, the likes of oral contraceptives, the likes of warfarin, and it will decrease the warfarins, yeah, or the oral contraceptive. So a client using this drug, you should check the drug history of that client. I think that's all on today. Today we have discussed this section of the table, the drugs that work by targeting the topoisomerase 2 and 4, and the drugs that work by inhibiting bacterial RNA synthesis. Thank you for your time. This is our, I believe this is our fourth episode, or this is our fifth episode, I believe. So our next episode, episode 6, will be our last episode on bacteria. We look on the drugs that work by inhibiting the synthesis of the protein. Yeah. Then after episode 6, we are going to look at some of the questions that comes in pharmacology class, or in NCLEX, or in other scenarios, or we'll create a case scenario for those clients or for those healthcare workers who work in the hospital or at the healthcare facility. Thank you for your time. We plan to improve more on the quality of the video, on the quality of the voice, and also in terms of engagement. Uh, Thank you for this good time. If you are new to the channel, please click the like button, subscribe the channel, let the channel grow, spread the new message on this platform, on where we can interact and discuss good topics. So this topic, antibiotic, it has been a very interesting topic, and I believe that we are going to even become better when it comes to antibiotics. Thank you. Have a nice day.